Hi all, welcome. Thanks for joining. We're going to wait until 2 minutes after 12 to get started.
Buenos días a todos. Gracias por venir a esta reunión. Vamos a esperar hasta las 12:02 para comenzar.
All right, we'll get started in 1 minute. Thanks for joining us.
Vamos a comenzar en 1 minuto. Gracias por venir.
Okay, welcome everyone. We're going to get started. I'm going to hand it over to our interpreter, Viviana Marzano, who is going to share how to use our interpretation feature. Viviana?
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. In order to provide language access, we will be offering interpretation, English and Spanish today. If you are not bilingual English and Spanish, you will have to make a selection. Buenas tardes. Para ofrecer acceso lingüístico, vamos a ofrecer interpretación al inglés y al español hoy. Si usted es bilingüe, no va a tener que hacer ninguna selección. If you are not bilingual and you are calling from a laptop or a computer, you will see once the interpretation is activated, a globe icon at the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Click on the icon, click on language interpretation, select English. If you are calling from a phone or an iPad, you will see a 3-dot menu. Click on the 3 dots, click on language interpretation, click on English, and click on done. Si usted no es bilingüe español e inglés, va a tener que seleccionar su idioma. Si está comunicado por una computadora o un laptop, va a encontrar el icono del globo terráqueo en la parte inferior derecha de la pantalla. Haga clic en el globo, haga clic en interpretación de idiomas, haga clic en Spanish o español. Si usted está conectado con un iPad o una tableta, verá un menú de 3 puntos, haga clic en los 3 puntos, seleccione interpretación de idioma, seleccione Spanish o español y seleccione finalizar o done. If there are no questions about interpretation, we can proceed with the meeting. Si no hay preguntas sobre la interpretación, podemos comenzar con la junta. Can the host please activate?
Okay. interpretation has started, and going to share the screen. Thank you all for joining. My name is Hillary. I'm the Planning and Marketing Manager at Santa Barbara MTD, and appreciate you joining us today. Going to go through some slides today, just so you know. I'm going to do a presentation, should take about 35 minutes, give or take. And then we will have time for questions and comments. But a way to ask questions, there's a couple ways. All the attendees, you're in listen only mode, so you won't be able to share your screens or turn on your video or unmute yourself at this point. But questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. Attendees can ask them throughout the meeting, though, by using the Q&A feature. So if you go to the area towards the bottom of the screen, you'll see there's raise hand, there's Q&A. You can click on Q&A and type in your question. That way we'll have it. We might be able to answer it along the way, but at the very least, we'll have it ready at the end. So here to talk about our August service changes. These changes would go into effect August 16th of 2021. We try to make service changes once a year in August, and that generally coincides with school coming back into session, etc. This year is different in a lot of ways. This past year has obviously been the most different for most of us throughout our lives, right? The weirdest year. And MTD is no exception. It's been interesting and strange and challenging, but we're getting through it. Wanted to talk to you about what is driving our decision making with these proposed changes. A few different things. First of all, and this is what's driven our decisions all year, public health and fiscal stability. Public health, obviously, number one, the health of our passengers, the health of our operators, the folks who clean our buses. That has been number one for us, making sure that we are following best practices when it comes to maintaining the vehicles, to cleaning them, to keeping everyone safe and healthy, and while also continuing to provide service and get people where they need to go. And so that's driven a lot of things about what we do behind the scenes with cleaning and disinfecting, but also with limiting the number of people allowed on board, boarding at the rear door, not collecting fares until yesterday. And then fiscal stability, needing to have the financial resources to make this happen. We've been extremely lucky that over the past year, public transit has been the beneficiary of some of the federal stimulus monies to keep us whole for now. We want to make that money last as long as possible because we know it's not like we're going to flip a switch in a few months and we're going to get back up to the high ridership levels we were at before the pandemic. So that money, we want to, make sure we hold on to it and we're able to keep all of our employees and put as much service out as possible. School closures and schedules, that has really ruled our world the past year. We've got the junior highs and high schools, community college, and the university all going through all the ups and downs that we all did this past year of, are they coming back to campus? Are they not? At what percentage? And so that's still a question for August. Things are looking much better, obviously, in the community as a whole with regards to COVID numbers, but we're going to be looking at what percentage the university and college are coming back in person, how many classes, how many people that translates to, and what levels of service we should have and are able to provide to those campuses. Then workforce constraints. And this is kind of the biggest one because if you don't have enough drivers, you can't do the work. And so our bus operators, we are hiring. We are looking for folks. It's a constant struggle. It takes a special kind of person to drive a bus. And so we are always recruiting, but of course people retire and move on. And so we need to keep keep our workforce up to a level that can actually do all the service that we put out there. So those are the things that go into this. It's not as simple as it might seem. So I just wanted to lay that out at the beginning. So this is an overview of the proposed changes. Again, this is still a proposal. I'll talk at the end about what comes next. And I'll go just briefly over the list, and then we'll dive into each one more deeply. We are recommending either partial or full restoration, more likely partial, of lines 15X, 16, 27, and 28. Continued suspension, for now, of lines 10, 36, 37, 90, 91, and 92. And then the proposed termination of the downtown and waterfront shuttles. So what did we do last year? Last March and April, we suspended routes as the campuses were closing, as the economy was closing. We did it in 2 quick spurts, March 19th and April 6th. And so these are all the lines that we suspended. Again, the ones I just talked about bringing back or terminating. We suspended the booster services to the junior highs and high schools. And then 90, 91, and 92, those are our Amtrak first and last mile shuttles that serve Goleta and Santa Barbara train stations for the peak trains. Those trains are not currently running. And so those, we weren't going to send a bus to meet a train that isn't there. What have we restored already? So as I'm sure you know, the junior highs and high schools in Santa Barbara Unified returned in-person classes in March. We resumed, I'm not going to list them, but this is a list of all the different booster lines that we resumed Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. They were on a cohort model. Monday and Thursday was cohort A, Tuesday, Friday was cohort B. As of April 19th, they brought almost everyone back. There are still some students who chose to stay remote, but for the most part, folks are back. At least 80% are back on a daily basis, except for Wednesday. And so we are continuing to carry them to school. Only a few more weeks left of school till summer school starts, but we have been running this service. Normally, this time of year, we would be coming to the public and saying at least some of the changes we're proposing to make for August involve tweaks to the schedules themselves because of on-time performance. We've been, over the past 5 years or so, really delving into, because we have the technology now, the same technology that allows you to see when your next bus is coming. We look at that on an internal basis to see what's causing that delay. Do we need to build more time into the schedule, et cetera? We've done a lot of work over the past, like I said, about 5 years to get even very granular to adjust those schedules. And for the first time in sort of anyone's memory in the past many years, we are not recommending any changes to fix on-time performance. So it's looking very good. It's something we track on a monthly basis, and we're really proud of that. Hopefully you've noticed that your bus is more on time even before the pandemic. So, and traffic's certainly coming back. So we don't have the excuse of everyone's in their house anymore. But it's something we're really proud of and we want to continue to work on. It's possible we might find a little trip level thing here or there before August, but likely everything will stay the way it is schedule-wise. So let me get a sip of water and then I'll talk about the 15X. So when we talk about service restoration, as I mentioned, a lot of those lines that we shut down in March were because the UCSB and City College campuses, they close. They send everybody away, the staff, the students, faculty, and so it didn't make sense to run that service. 15X is one of those, goes between UCSB and Isla Vista to Santa Barbara City College, and that's our express route. The map is here. We're recommending partial or full restoration depending on the enrollment levels and bus operator availability. So those, like, again, as I mentioned in one of those first slides, that's the thing that really depends. Right now we're hearing City College, or a couple months ago, we were hearing City College is probably going to be 40% of classes back in person. Not entirely clear if that's 40% of student body or 40% of just class slots. So we're finding out about that, but it seems like they'll be at least that. And like I said, we need to be able to have enough bus operators to ramp up all this different service. So likely the 15X will be recommended at a lower level than the regular full throttle that we would normally have. And those levels pre-pandemic were 15 to 30-minute headways Monday through Thursday. And then on Friday, there's just fewer classes on campus. And that was always 35-minute headways on Friday. Then we had a limited service in the summer and in a couple times a year, basically early January. And then there was no weekend service on the 15X. So this would likely come back at less frequent than it was before, maybe modeled on Friday, but with the span of service change. So that's something that we're looking at, but we do think that it does need to come back in some form. Line 16, also serving City College campus. This is the City College shuttle that goes between the transit center downtown, serves West downtown, and then heads under the freeway up to the campus. This is also the one that serves West Campus. We're recommending a full restoration of the Line 16. Actually, last year, just before the pandemic broke out, we were planning a new schedule for the Line 16. We're adjusting the afternoon headways. They were 20 minutes. It was 20-minute service all day. There's a portion of the afternoon that we're recommending to reduce that down to every 35 minutes. In the morning, it'll still be 20 minutes. There's really peak service, but the ridership drops a bit in the afternoon. And so we thought that this would be sufficient. So that loses 5.5 round trips total in a day, but the span of service would extend slightly at the end of the day for the last pickup at West Campus at about 5:56. That is because some classes were getting out before, and I forget what the exact last bus departure from West Campus was, but people were missing it by, 2 minutes basically. So we extended it a little to get some of those final later class members to be able to hop on the bus and get back downtown. Line 27, the Isla Vista shuttle. This is the one that goes to Community Rail Marketplace, serves the heart of Isla Vista, actually goes into IV, not just on El Colegio, and then to the UCSB campus. 27 has actually been running throughout the pandemic every day, but we actually have built in, prior to the pandemic, really 2 service levels, UCSB in and UCSB out. It's been running on the UCSB out service since last March. That means it's 35-minute headways right now on weekdays, and then weekends are the same year round, and those have stayed the same. Before the pandemic, UCSB in headways were every 14 minutes. And so, again, the level of service depends on how many people are going to be back. For UCSB, it's sounding like they're more going to be like 2/3 to maybe even closer to 100% students back. So that seems to say to me, Isla Vista and UCSB are going to be a hot ticket with a lot of folks out there, which pre-pandemic, obviously, that was huge ridership hotspot in Isla Vista. So we want to be ready for that. So we would recommend, if we have the resources, to return to full UCSB in service when on-campus instruction resumes. And this would be the ones that serve UCSB. When we say, go back in, that would start towards the end of September when UCSB classes start. City College services would start when City College starts, which is in late August. Line 28. This is a service that serves Community Rail Marketplace, Historic and El Colegio corridors, and UCSB. This service is generously funded for operations by the university. We paused this because, again, campus was closed. Before the pandemic, headways were every 10 minutes. We are looking at different ways we could restore this, possibly 10 minutes, but that takes a lot of buses and drivers. Probably more like every 15 to 18 minutes. And then 35-minute headways is also possible if you have one bus out there, again, depending on availability. The level of service also will depend on how many folks are living in those apartments out towards the end of Isla Vista, because those are our big sort of ridership drivers for that line. So we're kind of waiting to see a little bit to decide what level of service we're able to put out and we need to put out. These are lines that are currently suspended that we're recommending, at least for August, that they remain suspended. It doesn't mean we can't bring them back later in the year. In fact, that's our hope. But these lines are line 10, which serves the Cathedral Oaks area, ran very infrequently, anyhow, about 8 trips a day before, Monday through Friday. Seaside Shuttle and Carpinteria, that's been suspended. Crosstown Shuttle is also still suspended, though the lines 1 and 2 still connect the east and west sides. And then, as I mentioned before, lines 90, 91, and 92 are the Amtrak first last mile for the peak trains. The peak trains, we've been told, won't be back until at least the beginning of 2022. So those will be on ice until both the AM and PM peak trains come back. So we'll wait and see on that one. So we're seeing continued suspension for now. And the big driver of that is we just don't feel like we have enough bus operators to operate all the different services that we had before and do it right and make sure that we definitely have enough coverage. So we want to be conservative in how we bring back service. But I would imagine that this year, unlike other years, you may see, an updated bus book mid-year with more service coming back. So we'll need you to stay tuned as these things come back into service. Get another sip and we'll talk about this. So service termination, never something we like to talk about, never something we like to propose, but we have a real kind of situation with lines 30 and 34, which are the downtown and waterfront shuttles. They've been around for 30 years now in some form or another, but there are several things driving this. One is, of course, the traditional route up and down State Street for the downtown shuttle is not currently possible with State Street being closed to motor vehicles, and it seems probably forever. Traditional waterfront ridership drivers just not back in operation at this point. And we were told last May, actually, from the city of Santa Barbara that they do not have the financial resources to continue to subsidize the service. So just to explain, MTD and the city of Santa Barbara have a contract agreement where the city basically subsidizes what's called a fare buy down to help cover the cost of operating the shuttle service. They use downtown parking revenues. And as of last spring, the parking lots, they had stopped collecting fare or fees and they took a big hit to their budget. So they let us know that at least for this fiscal year, they were not able to fund that. We understood, and frankly, we pulled back and didn't have the resources to, certainly not to cover that. It was over $1 million a year. And we wanted to be conservative with our workforce this past year. And also knowing that the economy was not, was shut down for large swaths of the year. So it wouldn't have been used a ton either. Moving forward, because there are not the resources to make it happen, we are recommending termination. It's something that the City Public Works staff requested actually last May. We said, let's hold on and see how the year goes. Certainly none of us knew what the year would be like back in May. And so that's where we stand at this point. We do know that there's a lot of exciting work and visioning that's starting up about the future of downtown and State Street. It is certainly something that we want and need to be a part of as a transit agency. You can't have a good downtown without transit. There has to be a component of downtown circulation that's not just walking and biking or driving a car and parking it. And so we intend to be part of that conversation. But at this point, this is the recommendation, sort of for lack of resources to make it happen at this point. So let's see. So this is sort of strange because it's about the Seaside Shuttle, which is currently suspended. It's recommended to stay suspended for August, but could come back in 2022. Last year, we were looking at possibly changing the routing for the line 36 and the Seaside Shuttle in Carpinteria. And then we suspended it. So we said, we don't need to mess with routing. But right now, since we may bring it back later, we want to run it by the public. So if you know the Seaside Shuttle, you care about the Seaside Shuttle, you live in Carpinteria, you can let us know what you think. We had been approached actually for several years about folks who lived on Ogun Road, and I'll show maps in a second, where they were getting hit because of all of the construction traffic. They were getting hit with a lot more sort of through traffic on Ogun Road. And it's a little tighter squeeze, and just adding other vehicles like shuttles was, I guess, to them becoming a inconvenience or problem or something like that. So we looked at possible routing, right? We want to be good with neighbors. We want to be good neighbors. So we went and took a look to where we could send it instead on Ogun Road. So, whoops. So this is the previous routing, or the current routing if it were running today. And it is really a loop. It serves all the neighborhoods north of the freeway, and then heads over the San Ynez Bridge, and then downtown serves the Amtrak station, and heads back, and then heads over Casitas Pass. Left on Ogun Road, there's a stop there. Right on Camino Triado, there's a stop there. And then left on El Carro Lane, where it stops at El Carro Park. That's the time point. So that's the existing traditional route. There's two routes that we looked at that we think could be feasible. The first one is, instead of going on to Ogun, it would turn onto Shemara. And there's this dot here shows the location of where a new stop could be placed. It's Shemara and Haida. I apologize, I don't have the street here on this map. There's a little space there. And then it would go right on Camino Triado. It would be missing the stop on there. It's not possible to make it happen sort of from that angle. And then left on El Carro. So this would lose the stop on Ogun, lose the stop on Camino Triado, but it would add a stop on Shemara. The other alignment would be just going straight up to El Carro Lane and turning left, and then the next stop would be at El Carro Park. Obviously, one of the issues here is that these stops are very far apart, the one on Casitas Pass and the one on El Carro Lane. And there's not really any space in between, any good places for a stop. So this would mean there wouldn't be a stop in this part of the neighborhood. So if you live on Ogun, it's kind of a schlep either way. So it seemed to planning and operations folks that Shemara would make more sense and it would serve more people, but we want to hear what you think about this. So next steps, before we get to questions, we encourage you to please take our survey if you have not already. If you go to sbmtd.gov/service changes by 5 p.m. tomorrow, because we need to close the survey and get everything to our board of directors. Please fill it out. Essentially what the survey is, it explains all the things I just explained, and then it has a box for you to put in your feedback. So you can say, I love it, I hate it, I guess, I understand, sure, why not, whatever you think, whatever it means to you, those changes mean to you, please put those in so that we can pass that information along. If you've got just like too much to say that you don't think could fit in a survey, you can feel free to send an email to info@sbmtd.gov. This will all be compiled in the same way. And then the survey results and the public input and feedback and all the different ways that it has arrived, including whatever questions and comments you ask here today, will be shared with our board of directors at the May 18th meeting. That meeting's on a Tuesday at 8:30 a.m. It's done on Zoom. You can get the information on our website. And at that meeting, the board of directors will decide on a final service plan so that we can start moving forward towards August, making the schedules, making the bus book and all of that stuff. One more thing before we get to questions, while I have you, the transit center has been renovated. It's now open for transactions and bus information. You can't hang out and wait for your bus inside yet because of COVID restrictions, but you can go in, purchase passes, and get information about when your next bus is coming. Hope you check it out. It looks really nice in there. And then fare collection began again. It says begins again. It began again yesterday, Monday, May 10th. So now we're asking folks to once again board at the front door and have their cash or passes ready to go. Thank you for your patience over the past year of riding. Hopefully it was nice to not have to pay, but now we are back. We've installed driver barriers so that our bus operators are safer up at the front of the bus. And so that's why we're able to open up again on the front and start collecting those fares, which we really appreciate and turns out really need. So we want people to avoid the rush. Don't wait till the last minute to get your pass. It's pretty busy at the transit center right now. We are limiting the number of people that can be in the building at once to 20. So if you want to go at off times, makes sense to do that. And then something that'll be coming up later this year, it's very exciting and there will be a ton of public outreach and engagement about, is a short range transit plan. A short range transit plan is basically a 5-year plan for our service and our operations and how we work as a transit agency, what we provide to the public. So it's going to you, getting information on sort of the current state of affairs, what you'd like to see, what's possible. And so we've got a consultant team coming on to help us do that. We're really excited. So stay tuned and please participate in that so we can know what all your transit hopes and dreams are for the next 5 years. So now, how to ask questions. Again, you're in listen only mode. There are a couple questions on Q&A, which I will answer in just a second. But if you'd prefer to speak your comment or want to do that additionally, you can use the raise hand function. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. And when called on, I will mention your name, give you speaking privileges, and you'll see something pop up giving you a request to unmute. You'll click unmute and begin speaking. So first off, I'm going to go to the Q&A, and it doesn't have to be a question, it can be a comment. I had a question that says, can the line 36 become a peak service route like the line 10 was? Because most people use line 36 to go to school. Good question. So we actually reached out before school came back to Carpinteria Unified to say, because while there are no sort of official booster services in Carpinteria, we do know that students were definitely taking the Seaside Shuttle to get to school. I spoke with the superintendent. She said that, no, we're good. I think we're good. We checked, we asked people and they said they were fine. So at that point we said, okay, well, it seems like we don't need to do that. And we haven't heard from anyone about that. We've certainly heard from other people who aren't students who missed the line 36, but we hadn't heard that about the school. But it is something we did investigate because we know that definitely in those peak times in the morning and afternoon, there can be a lot of students. So I appreciate that question. And then there was another comment saying that Shemara Street is a better street for that route. So those are the questions I have in the Q&A. Let's see if anyone has their hand raised. If you don't know how, if you hover over the area at the bottom, depending on what device you're on, there's raise hand. I do have one hand raised from Jim Eaton. Jim, I'm going to allow you to talk, and you should get a.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, the State Street Shuttles, what I'm about is we're going to start getting, tourists are going to start coming back. And I know that we have a lot of people who would ride that shuttle going and seeing our beautiful city. And it seems like we could still operate the shuttle if it actually left from the Amtrak station and have one that would go to the zoo, because you get a lot of people going to the zoo from the train station, and then another one that would go up State Street to Gutierrez over to Chapala, then up Chapala, and just can drop people off there and then go back and then come down Anacapa. And you could probably do that with just 2 buses if you're using regular, like 40-foot buses. And I think it would be wonderful for the tourists. And then also the local people that live here that want to go to the 99-cent only store, is because that is a lot of people use that State Street Shuttle. And I know the ridership was way off on it for a while, but it's kind of like a part of Santa Barbara. And in my career at MTD, I looked at myself as being a State Street Shuttle driver more than I did an MTD driver, because I felt like it's part of the soul of Santa Barbara. I don't want to put like importance on myself, but it's just, it is something with Santa Barbara is our State Street Shuttle. And I hate seeing it not there. So, but there is the economic reality of this whole thing. And, it's going to take a few years to get the tax revenue and stuff back. But if the people come from the train station and they just stay in the funk zone, that's not helping the businesses that are up in La Acadia Court or getting people up to see our courthouse. Because you come up here, you go to the courthouse and you just look at our beautiful city. And if they can't get up to the courthouse from the train station, they're just going to go see the funk zone down there, which is a nice place to go hang out. But there's so much more to our city that it just makes me feel sad that people would come to Santa Barbara and not see the courthouse tower and not see our beautiful city and just see, the funk zone, which the funk zone is nice. Don't get me wrong, but there's so much more to our city, and we can get them there easily on the bus. And especially if we're leaving from the Amtrak station, so that people don't really need to know where to go to get on the bus. If we actually have a bus sitting there, there's enough room to park 2 buses where the Amtrak buses go. And then the waterfront bus would sit in the bus stop on State Street. It's just, I'm sorry to, but anyhow, this is something that I'm passionate about. And we have such a beautiful city, and it's just a shame that we can't show the people it when they start coming. And also if we could maybe, I don't want to go over my time, but if we could just communicate maybe with the city of Santa Barbara, could communicate with Amtrak, because Amtrak's going to know a couple of days ahead of time how many people are riding on the train. So because they sell the tickets, so they have the information in the computer. So let's say there's a bunch of Girl Scouts decide to come to the zoo, or Boy Scouts decide to come to the zoo, and you're going to have like 60 or 70 Girl Scouts on there. Amtrak's gonna know that a couple of days ahead of time, and then they could say, hey, MTD, we're gonna have a whole bunch of kids going to the zoo on, Friday or Wednesday or whatever. And just get them there, use somebody that's got a split shift that they can just go and run them over there, like a real quick run. But anyhow, that's just my whole thing is I hate to see the State Street and Waterfront Shuttle go, because our city's so beautiful, and we can do so much to service the people coming to see us. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks so much. I've got another hand up, Tim Connors. I'm going to allow you to speak, and go ahead and unmute and share your question or comment.
Hillary, I wanted to say that
Tim, you're kind of breaking up. It's a little hard to hear you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I feel the same way that Jim does. And I also wanted to let you know that I sent a letter to Salud Carbajal about the waterfront shuttle and got no response. And also I got in touch with Barry Remus about the shuttle, and we both agree that eventually, even though there won't be any cars driving on that street, I feel that the shuttle could still go down that street, because I think it really works well for all the residents and all the tourists. So I really feel that positive things could happen in the near future.
Thank you. And I would encourage you as well, if you're looking to reach out to folks who have any kind of say in it, to reach out to the city council. Congressman Carbajal, he's very supportive of MTD, but doesn't really have any control over the shuttle. I'd encourage folks to reach out to city council if it's something you're passionate about, because I know they're starting to hear from folks too. But it's good you're here, and we'll pass your thoughts on to our board of directors as well.
Right.
So thank you.
Also, one other thing, in speaking with Barry, he said that there's an $11 million fund that was given to us. And he said part of that money could go towards the waterfront shuttle, perhaps.
I don't know what 11 million he's talking about, but if somebody finds that money, we're
not sure what
we're open to that. But Barry's in touch with us as well, and has been participating. Right. So thank you for that, and thanks for being involved.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments anyone wants to bring up? If so, you can raise your hand or ask in the Q&A. And we give it like another minute, but otherwise we can sort of end early, which is always acceptable. And thank you very much for attending. I want to thank you all for attending, and thank our interpreter Viviana for participating and making our meeting accessible. And if there are no other questions, we will go ahead and end our meeting. Again, reminder to take the survey, sbmtd.gov/service changes. If you know people who are concerned about these things, if you like you do, please encourage them to take that survey before Wednesday evening. So it'll close at 5 o'clock on Wednesday, tomorrow. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for being an MTD writer, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.